Hello, everybody, and welcome to a slightly different episode than normal. An episode where I said I've been wanting to do for a while now, that I've finally just gotten to. This is the episode where I record myself reading all of the weapon stories for all the weapons in Nier Replicant. I have no idea how long this is gonna be. As you can tell, I haven't gone and upgraded all the weapons myself in-game, because I enjoy my free time. There's a lot of these. I have opened up every single, weapon in another tab, but you probably not seeing that, because I edited it nicely so you don't see any of my tabs or whatnot. Aren't I? Great. Anyway, let's get right into this. I have no idea how long this is gonna be, or even how good this is gonna be. Well, you know what? We'll find out. This is for the Nameless Blade, the weapon that we first got. Smash, 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 smash. Sweat rolls down the faces of the hard-scrabble men as they chip away at ironstone, their cheerful singing echoing through the mine. We are workers in the mine, dirty from tip to toe. Again today we search for iron with all our might. Smash, 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 smash. Foom, 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 foom. The sound of women stomping on bellows in the mill. The sound of iron being gathered from the scorched sands. We are workers in the mill. Workers who send wind. Today, we stomp the bellows again with all our might. Foom, 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 foom. Clang, 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 clang. The sound of swordsmiths wielding hammers at their forges. The ringing of such transformative blows is stunning indeed. We are swordsmiths who bring blades to life, lords of steel. Clang, 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 clang. Rip, 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 rip. The sound of flesh being rent on the battlefield. The sound of killing enemies, killing someone, killing humans. Someone help me. It hurts. It hurts so much. Help me, mommy. Rip, 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 rip. Ooh, well, yeah, rip indeed. It's a fairly straightforward story, this one. It's the story of a sword being made and eventually being used for its intended purpose. Which, I guess this sword ended up doing. As the starter weapon. Alright, let's move on to the next one. I'm going in order of all of the one-handed weapons, and then onto the two-handers, and then the spears. Also, this is from Nier Replicant, the remake, so it will have a couple of weapons that weren't in the original, which is cool. This is the Lily Leaf Sword. I don't think we wielded this one all too much. Right, well, we definitely got it, because I got all the endings, and I definitely remember it, so let's get on with it. I love him with all my heart, as he does me. When we cross paths outdoors, he sends signals with his eyes that only I can understand. He treasures my gifts so much, he keeps them locked away in a safe. Oh, I couldn't ask for a better lover. I can't believe this. My best friend deceived the love of my life and stole him from me. One moment he was there, and the next he was gone. All that remains are some of my gifts, which are scattered across his empty room. And everything else of value has been sold at the village marketplace. And this will not stand. He hasn't abandoned me. He's just being tricked by that woman. I know he still has feelings for me. He must. I'm far more beautiful than she is, and he knows it. Oh, yes, he knows it. But I must make him see the truth, and quickly. I have to get her away from him. I have to kill her. Kill! Hurry up and kill. Consumed by her madness, the woman slaughtered the young husband and wife, hacking them with such force that the blade of her sword warped. The woman then went into hiding, leaving behind only clumps of unrecognizable meat and a sword with a horribly bent blade. But no matter how many smiths attempted to repair the sword, it never again retained its original shape. You could kind of see that with the bend in this blade, although I highly doubt. I don't know if we could, like, we take all of these stories at face value. Like, these things are things that happened to this weapon, or these are just, like, stories that happen to kind of relate to the weapon. A narrow sword once owned by a woman of such impossible beauty that men begged her to take their lives. Well, as we can see right here, the blade was originally a lot more bent, if we go by the, whatever this image represents, the render. Onto the Nirvana dagger. Ooh, I remember this thing. We used this for a little while as well. A group of girls used this sword to consecrate a newly built temple with their own blood. Right, this was found in the Lost Shrine. The girl had been betrothed to a local lord on the day of her birth. As she grew, her days were taken up studying proper bridal technique, while her evenings were spent staring out her bedroom window and offering prayers for her beloved to the night sky. Betrothed, even. Oh, my lord, if only you would come to me but a single day sooner. Her home was occupied by several other girls her age. Each one shared the same betrothed, and spent her days studying bridal techniques, and her evenings praying to the night sky. Oh, my lord, if only you would come to me but a single day sooner. One day, a quarrel broke out, as the girls argued that only the greatest among them could become their lord's betrothed. None would yield an inch, each asserting that only they alone could possibly satisfy him. Seeing this, their caretaker said in a kind voice, "Worry not, girls. Each and every one of you shall surely become bride to our lord." Hearing this, every face lit up in an expression of pure joy. On the day they were to be married, the girls were brought to a place of cobbled stone they could see from the windows of their home. A single dagger was then placed before them, and the girls were told they needed to end their life here and now if they wished to meet their betrothed. Upon hearing this news, the girls scrambled to seize the dagger from one another, plunging it into their chest the moment they held it. Years later, a temple named the Betrothed was built on the spot where the girls took their own lives. Yeah, that's messed up for sure. Let's continue onwards. If you're expecting deep, meaningful commentary from me from all of these, then I'm sorry, but I'm just barely drinking my coffee. Moonrise. I don't think we wield this one all that much. I'm also drinking coffee while this is happening. A weapon owned by a blind swordsman. The blade shines in darkness. The blade shines in darkness, making the owner easy to spot. There is a legend of long ago that speaks of a nation threatened by a great inferno. This nation, however, was saved from eternal hellfire by a sword with the power to freeze anything. Around this sword stood thousands upon thousands of ice sculptures. A man on a journey to seek out weapons eventually discovered the sword. He wrapped it in several layers of cloth and took it with him, placing it in the bag he carried upon his back. But before the man realized what was happening, the cloth, the sword, and his own body ended up frozen solid. A traveling shrine maiden eventually discovered the sword. She offered a prayer to her god and gripped the hilt, but cold instantly shot through her fingers and into her body, freezing her solid. In her final moments, the shrine maiden unleashed words of great blasphemy to the god who had failed her. An enslaved woman in a mine eventually discovered the sword. Desiring an easy death over the continuation of her daily suffering, she grasped the weapon firmly, and while the woman did not freeze, she was also unable to pierce her own flesh. Soon, moonlight shone upon the blade of the weapon, reflecting the sight of the woman being beaten and dragged away by her master. That's morbid. Yeah, thanks guard who gives us Moonrise. You're a real nice guy. Oh, I definitely remember Rebirth. A unique sword with a round blade. Legend holds it that it robs the wielder of his life force. That's right. This here's the weapon that'll be ending your life. Nah, don't sweat it. There's nothing to worry about. It'll be a pain the likes of which you've never felt before. In fact, you won't even feel pain at first. It'll be more like water sliding across your skin. Honestly, for most folks, it ain't the pain that makes them scream. It's the sight of their own blood flowing out of them. Yeah, it won't end so easy. See, this part of the blade right here? This part hurts like a real son of a bitch. It's my favorite, which is why I always save it for last. I use it after people's voices get too hoarse, and you can't tell what they're saying. Which is a real... Fucking hell, are you ever loud? Mind piping down there? You're gonna make my hand slip. I won't kill you right away, so don't worry about a thing there, champ. I'm gonna take my sweet time before you finally give up the ghost. Honestly, you'd be surprised how much it takes to kill a person. I mean, think about it. People got 2 eyes, most of them anyway, 2 ears, 10 fingers, 10 toes, 20 nails across the lot. And don't even get me started on joints, because folks got hundreds of the damn things. Yeah, we got plenty of ways to keep ourselves entertained. Huh? Why am I doing this? Now ain't that a question? Buddy, I'm just doing what you've been doing for a good long while now. Nabbing innocent citizens on fake charges, torturing them, and putting their severed heads on display. That ring any bells, buddy? It should, because it was all you. Guess maybe you forgot about all that, eh? Well, that's okay. I'll spend all the time it takes to make sure you remember every last thing you did to my wife and daughter. So what starts out as a story of somebody torturing someone, it still ends as that, but it ends on a story of revenge rather than just mindless killing. Torture, I guess. These are all, I feel like things aren't going to get any less bleak with these. Earthworm's Claw. Ooh, I remember we got this in Facade as well. What a ugly looking weapon, huh? Made from the fossil of an ancient beast. It's more unwieldy than most swords, but further forging can't help. An elderly scholar sits in the dim reference room of a moldy museum. Before him lies a single box, which has been sealed away. It is an article the museum's previous curator made abundantly clear should never be opened. It is said the box contains a fossil that drinks the blood of humans. What foolishness. One would think we as a people would have outgrown such nonsense. Only someone who spends all their life surrounded by books could possibly believe such a preposterous superstition. He opens the box, which spits forth a cloud of dust, and beholds a single stone of bizarre shape. Looking at the attached handle, one could easily conclude it was used in some manner of ceremony. However, it could also be used as a weapon. And what a fascinating shape. Yes, this will require more rigorous research indeed. How foolish everyone was to be afraid of something like this. The scholar chuckles softly to himself as he reaches up and gouges out his left eye with the fossil's tip. Yeah, I don't think this sword is a great a boon as you think it is, Mr. Scholar Man. Let's continue. Ooh, right, this thing, the Blade of Treachery, the one that looks like it's from a different RPG altogether. When a man who has lost his way wields this sword, the blade becomes as blunt as wood. sisters were puppets of complex machinery. So fine was their construction that any who laid eyes upon them assumed they were humans in every single way. They were the embodiment of man's greatest technological achievements. They walked like humans, ate like humans, laughed like humans. The only thing they could not do, however, was shed tears, for they were not designed that way. A little bit of a parallel to the story that they are currently in. You might say that these girls are gestalts. Let's continue. Because the sisters were machines, they felt nothing. Oh, they might mourn as humans did, but they experienced no true sadness, for they did not know what sadness was. Even when their friends perished in tragic accidents, and their creator died of disease, they felt nothing. To the sisters, all it meant was that those people no longer existed. It was a warm spring's day when a lone cat wandered into their home. It was a scrawny, filthy thing riddled with disease. What a bother, the sisters thought as they looked down at the wretched creature. But they fed it milk, wiped it clean, and kept it warm. And soon the cat was well again. From that day forth it would linger wherever the sisters were, brushing against their legs when it wanted food. If it caught a mouse, it would bring it back to boast its prowess. If it wanted love, it would cry out to them in a mewling voice. It was a cold winter's day when the cat came into their house, let out a feeble squeak, and died. Time and again did the younger sister shake the cat's body. Time and again did the elder sister call out to it, but the cat neither moved nor responded. In that moment, the sisters felt as though they felt something break inside their chests, and from that day forth, they truly felt nothing at all. In the Japanese version of Drakengard, it is known as Devil Popol, which might have inspired the names of Devla and Popola. The weapon story for the Blade of Treachery is about Devla and Popola's nature as androids. Yeah, I got images of them while I was reading. Interesting. Let's continue. Beastbane, yeah! I'm currently wielding... Am I wielding? I have this thing currently in Nier Automata, which you should go watch if you're watching this. It's good. A sword that bears a beastly motif. Its short, thin blade seems almost eager to vanish from sight. Long, long ago in a faraway kingdom, there lived 3 brothers. The middle brother was a famous general who commanded a vast army. People everywhere were terrified of his troops, for they were most violent indeed. This general loved to make war. He enjoyed nothing more than watching cities burn and corpses pile up, and he fought not to subjugate, but simply to destroy all that he could. His well-trained soldiers laid waste to towns, cities, and even nations for the sake of their general. And as they hewed and hacked and chopped, the general would chuckle to himself in the most vulgar of tones. The army marched on and on. Nations by the sea, nations in the mountains, nations in the desert, nations in the tundra, nations to the east, nations to the west. The general cared not. He simply wished to watch it all burn. His orders were absolute, and for years beyond counting, the soldiers killed and killed and killed and killed and killed and killed. After some time, the army arrived in a certain nation. They killed its soldiers, they killed its townspeople, they killed its princesses and princes and dukes and bakers and lawyers and accountants and beggars and thieves. Eventually, a shabby general came pleading for his life with tears in his eyes, but they killed him as well. However, the soldiers thought he seemed familiar and tried to recall how they might have known him. In that moment, however, the general's daughter appeared, and they became so engrossed in ending her life, they never thought about the matter again. Damn. Well, what goes around comes around, to put it bluntly, I guess. Let's continue. Faith. Now this is a weapon we wield almost throughout the entire thing. Mostly because I thought it looked cool. A sword carried by the world's most loyal servant. Like that loyalty, the sword's blade is straight and true. There was once a famous poet in a land to the far, far east. Now in his twilight years, his ability had withered such that he could no longer craft a single stanza or verse. The poor poet spent every moment racked with sorrow for what had been lost. But one day, a monk appeared by his side, gently placed a blade in his hand, and imparted the following words. Kill one by this blade for one poem, and two for two in kind, the likes of which will be more splendid than any this world has ever heard. Clinging to the monk's words, the man waited for the cover of darkness and cut down a man he had encountered by the roadside. The following day, he wrote a most beautiful poem, instantly reclaiming the fame and prosperity he had lost. The poet went on to kill two in succession. He killed one and wrote a poem, then killed again and wrote another, rising to almost dazzling levels of wealth and renown. But soon he became obsessed with knowing how splendid a poem he might write if he were to kill someone precious to him. He killed his wife and wrote a poem. He killed his children and wrote a poem for each. He moved through his estate, killing everyone there, writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. Eventually, he killed so many passers-by that the poems could not keep up. He would kill and write, then kill and kill and kill and kill, until in the end he took his own life, no longer crafting poems at all. All that remained was a blade wet with blood. Dude's an idiot. To put it bluntly. Also, I did not know that upgrading weapons changed how they look. Interesting. I'll remember to do that from now on. Ancient Overlord. No, this is one we're wielding in Nier Automata right now. An ancient warlord used this sword to slay his loyal subjects in hopes of gaining eternal life. There once was a royal sword passed down in a prodigious kingdom that had prospered for generations. It was said the crystal embedded upon it contained a great magic, and should it ever absorb the blood of 10,000 people, it would glow bright red and grant its wielder immortality. However, this kingdom's final ruler, known to the world as the High King, valued the continued prosperity of the kingdom he had inherited from his ancestors over any prospect of eternal life. How is this gonna go poorly? One day, the queen, the king's dearest love, lost her life in a tragic accident. She was with child, and the tragedy occurred shortly before the babe was to be born. Distraught with grief upon hearing the news, the aged king found himself unable to accept the prospect of his royal bloodline dying with him. Well, there you go. In an attempt to continue the kingdom's legacy by obtaining a body without death, the now mad High King used the sword to cut down any and all subordinates or citizens unlucky enough to cross his path. If I am to be the final king, he was heard to cry, then the kingdom survives so long as I live. He killed his subjects by the dozens, the hundreds, the thousands, and with each life he stole, the crystal's life grew more radiant. But when the crystal was nearly full, the king's ailing heart proved unable to bear the burden and burst, killing him on the spot. Alas, he had just slain the pregnant woman and unborn child that were before his very eyes. He would have had taken exactly 10,000 lives. Yeah, that's... No, it started out so, hopeful, I guess. Funnily enough, I'm pretty sure this is how the blade looks in Nier Automata. I mean, we could also, look at all the specifications for these weapons, but I don't think any of you care all that much about that. Let's continue. This is the Phoenix Dagger. A ceremonial blade crafted from feathers of the legendary Firebird. It is untested as a weapon. Yeah, well, it looks like that. I doubt it would work very well in anything but a video game. There was once a woman who promised her hand to a man who was departing for the front. Devout by nature, she spent mornings, afternoons, and evenings in prayer for the safety of her beloved. Perhaps in response to her earnest pleas, one night, a bird enveloped in light appeared to her in a dream and began to speak. I had trouble reading that sentence. "The man you love will surely return safely," said the bird in a beautiful voice. These words brought a great comfort to the woman, and she began weeping tears of joy. "However," continued the bird, "his heart surely will not." Soon the man returned, as the bird had foretold, his body covered in scars beyond counting. But, as the bird had also foretold, he returned with an unfamiliar woman of extraordinary beauty at his side. Despite this, the pious woman could not contain her love for the man, and ran out to meet him as he approached. Surprised, the man embraced her, then collapsed to the ground. The pious woman stood over him, a bloody dagger in one hand, and the ripe crimson fruit of his heart in another. "His heart will stay no longer," she whispered, amidst the gathering pool of blood, her face awash with pure ecstasy. She placed a tender kiss on her beloved's heart and offered a prayer of gratitude. "That's fucked up, lady." "Hey, lady, you mind explaining to me why I need 2 eggs to forge this to be better?" Oh, this one doesn't change looks when it's upgraded. Neither does this one. Hold on, why did the last couple ones change their looks? Ah, whatever. 32. Oh my god. Let's continue. Labyrinth's Whisper. God, what an ugly weapon, huh? Forged from steel and liquefied beast fangs, the blade is red with the blood of countless sacrificial offerings. No, it isn't. It's gray. I've been wanting to clear my nose throughout the entirety of this so far, and I haven't been wanting to because this is a very audio heavy episode. Hold on, let me just move away from the microphone and clear my nose. I am sorry if you heard that. Let's continue. So, this girl had a huge set of horns on her. Beautiful horns like a bull just growing out of her head above her ears. I had myself a gander at where the horns met her head, and let me tell you, they were coming straight out of her skull. And she was the only kid in that whole village. The others were all normal. The kid with horns, though, born real small, apparently. The horns not the kid. And hell, they would have needed They would have needed me. Fat chance the kid's mama would have been able to push out a pair of horns that huge as that. You'd think a kid like that would have been bullied, right? Well, you'd be wrong. That kid was the hardest person for miles in any direction. Wasn't a man in the village who'd tangle with her. And we're talking men what ain't scared of nothing. She was the best at doing work what needed physical strength and all that. And she was always lead the charge whenever shades attacked. And folks loved her for that. Sure, but most of all, they loved her because she was always cheerful and just plain tough. But one day, this huge shade attacked the village that was just too strong. It tore the men apart like old rags, and half the guys in the village died. The girl with the horns fought with all she had, but eventually she just couldn't keep up, and the shade lifted her off the ground and ripped the horn straight out of her head. The way she screamed was like nothing you've ever heard. Sound shook the earth itself, it did. And after that, things got real quiet. So I stepped outside and found both the shade and the girl dead. Each of them had wounds all over, and they were leaking blood just about everywhere. And don't judge me for saying this now, but it was almost beautiful. Like looking at dark red flowers in full bloom, you know? Hope that answers your question about why folks in this village can't hear nothing. But you should know, none of us think badly of the girl for making us this way. being deaf is a hell of a sight better than being dead. Anyway, we've all talked over that day to death, and we think that final scream was her way of saying goodbye. Everyone in the village is honored. The last thing they ever heard was her farewell. And that's the God's honest truth. This is one of the few stories that isn't like needlessly tragic, I guess. It's not quite what I mean by that, but you get what I mean. It doesn't like end in complete tragedy. It ends on like people being grateful that they're still alive and whatnot. The weapon's design, along with the Labyrinth's shout and Labyrinth's song, reflects key aspects of the battle between the Greek hero Theseus and the Minotaur. The weapons have a horn motif, which is representation of the Minotaur. Other names contain the word labyrinth, which is, you know, you're smart. You know what a labyrinth is and why it pertains to a Minotaur. Let's continue. Fool's Embrace. Ah, what an ugly weapon. It's like a dragon with its tail being the stabby bit. Hold on, does this song sound any louder to all of you? Oh, whatever, I'll keep it at that. I am, by the way, the song we've been listening to this whole time is a Song of the Ancients. It's an instrumental. So if that's what you're wondering, it's the song that plays when you're in the library. I found it fitting. Right. We get this from the diary, when we were playing as Father Nier. I was saved from the despair that shackled me. I was free from the fate that cursed me. I was pacified from the indignation that plagued me. I was changed by the day I met you. My flames will scorch the earth below. My fangs will know the taste of blood. My claws will rend my enemies asunder. My wings will soar through the skies above. If your eyes are to be robbed of their light, if your skin is to be stained with blood, if your sword is too heavy a burden, if your lips can no longer produce speech, even if this body is snuffed out, even if these words are stolen, until our contract is complete, until the moment this warmth is lost. Less of a story and more of a vow, I guess. At level 4, this is the strongest one-handed weapon in the original release. Yeah, it's pretty strong. The weapon's description and appearance are a reference to Drakengard. Upon closer inspection, it appears to take the shape of a level 1 Angelus in flight. The weapon story seems to be from Angelus's perspective. I know nothing about Drakengard, aside from the things that you know from Nier. So, if any of you in the comments section could help with that, I would be grateful, please. Thank you. Ooh, now this is one of the ones that I've been really interested in. The Iron Pipe is such a meaningful weapon in the Nier lore, which is funny considering what it is. A relic of a civilized age. Its rusty scent comes from the blood of all who dare oppose the wielder. May 21st. We finally ran out of money. Food just costs a lot more nowadays because of the war. We tried begging at the church, but they have their hands full caring for the workers and can't spare anything. Jonas really lost a lot of weight. I wish I could get her something to eat. July 15th. We met a nice lady who gave us some food. At first, I thought she was homeless like us, but she said she was joining some kind of relief and support thing run by the government, so we decided to go with her. At least Jonas seems to be doing okay today. August 1st. That nice lady from before used a book and turned into a monster. We ran away as fast as we could because I don't think she's human anymore. Everything those adults told us was a lie. They won't give us money, and they won't treat Yona's illness. Also, there's a huge wall around the city now, and we can't get out. We never should have come here. August 5th. It's so cold today. I can't believe it's summer. I can actually see my breath. We decided to hide from the monsters in an abandoned supermarket. We found a few old cans of food there, But now those are gone, and Yona's cough just won't quit. I've got a really bad feeling about this. Damn, that's... Remind me if I'm wrong, but I probably am. This is like the first hints that we get of to what Nier and Yona did before the supermarket, I guess. What life was kind of like. I love this so much. Oddly, the iron pipe has a holy aura when charged. It better. This weapon is not marked as new in Grimoire Weiss's notebook when picked up during the magical stone. Huh? The weapon story for the iron pipe is about the lives of Nier and Yona a few months before the prologue of the game. Oh, man. It's stuff like this that really makes you love this game. Ooh, now we're into the other one that I really wanted. This is the one that you get, right, so, required by Nier after viewing ending E. Right, this is the, wait, you could get this weapon in Drakengard 3? Interesting. A sword wielded by a woman who loved killing. There were originally two, but one broke amidst the fierce battle. She fears the pain, the suffering, the sadness of losing those she cherishes. However faint, that feeling alone remained with her. She fights. Her swordsmanship is so violent it wards off sorrow itself. Nothing can stop her vengeful blade, its grim work. Not even the fountains of blood that cloud her vision. She dreams. The darkness sings to her of solitude and despair, but she resists, time and again, never breaking. She presses on. Even if the future that awaits has no meaning, she presses on. Because this is the world with Nier. Got a little bit misty-eyed reading that. Oh, man, I love these games, man. Upgrading it doesn't actually boost its power anymore. That's pretty good. And now we get into the other interesting thing. Right, we get this, I think you just get this for owning Nier Replicant. Or something, I don't remember. Yeah, right, for the free download, it's free DLC. A sword imbued with negative emotions by an unknown smith. Its white blade, resplendent in the sun's light, clouds the vision of any who dare confront it. Pod, relay the following to command. Mission complete. Destruction of target verified. I will return to the bunker after recovering remains. Over. Pod, relay the following to command. I've made contact with the operations target. No suspicious activity observed at present. I will continue monitoring the target. Over. Pod, relay the following to command. I investigated the target's observational records, but found no hostile behavior. Requesting target re-examination and the temporary suspension of this operation. Destruction of target verified. I make no apologies, for I promised I would not. Farewell. I might have some idea what that's about. But I don't want to say it for the fear of sounding stupid. But I'm gonna say it anyway. Spoilers for if you haven't played Nier Automata, I guess. No, it can't be about 9S. Because that's... With the exception of Cruel Oath, all 4 Yorha weapons do not gain magic power, even when upgraded. Fair enough. Let's continue on to Cruel Oath. By the way, if you didn't realize, that was 2B's sword from Nier Automata, and this is 9S's. A sword imbued with negative emotions by an unknown smith. Its black blade, nigh invisible in the dark of night, bewilders all who dare confront it. I am starting your boot sequence. Wait, I'm starting your boot sequence. As you lay resting before me, I call out to you. I want to let you sleep a little longer, but I've got my orders. Let's start by getting the brightness set. That was the first thing you saw after you woke up. I hope my hair looks alright. Let's check your voice recognition settings. Can you hear me? Mine was the first voice you heard after you woke up. I have to try and keep my voice nice and deep. I don't want to sound too excited. Okay, settings should be good to go. Good morning. And so we peacefully boot you up to boot you to face yet another day. Another day of killing our machine enemies. This is obviously talking about the beginning of Nier Automata after the prologue, where 9S helps 2B set up her settings. But we get to experience it from the other side, again, but in a different way. Maybe not as deep as the other ones, but we do get a little bit of insight into 9S's thinking when he was doing all this. About how he, wants to let 2B sleep longer. How he hopes his hair looks okay. It's a real punch in the gut, yeah? And now we move on into the two-handed weapons. Kusanagi. This is the first one we get after the time skip. A man whose fiancée was spirited away by an 8-headed beast used to use this sword to smite his foe. The shield left hanging on the wall was covered in dust. The blade left its scabbard had rusted over. The techniques I hadn't used were forgotten. The body I was to train with left to grow soft. And I had lost the will to practice discipline. I thought things would end without a single word said. I pretended not to see violence inflicted by others. I had given up, assuming things would never change. I believed there was no way to oppose such a great power. I sneered at hearts that tried to believe anyway. I laughed, thinking them brainless fools. Those were the thoughts I had taken refuge in. I had given up, believing nothing was possible in the end. I lamented the foolishness and ugliness of it all. My life had lost all meaning. I had lost sight of those who were precious to me. I could not believe in their kindness. I was unable to save them from the grief that tore at their hearts. I had forgotten the courage it takes to protect the smallest of joys. I believed my words would never reach you. God damn. Why? Why is this happening to me? This is obviously the story of somebody who realized that giving up was probably a stupid idea. And lamenting the fact. Ooh, the acts of beheading. A man's dementia drove him to attack his daughter's fiancé with this axe. Sadly, he hit his daughter instead. There once was a ritual gathering of spirits held on the night of the 10th full moon per the... What? Listen, it's difficult to read. There once was a ritual gathering of spirits held on the night of the 10th full moon of the year. During the ceremony, they would gather on the shores of a lake and boast to one another of all the evil deeds they had performed during the year. They seem like a nice bunch. The first spirit took great joy in telling of the unfathomably cruel ways she had killed some of the finest soldiers in the land. Over the year, she had transformed her shape into a lady of the night, and called out to various men, then tore off every last piece of their body when they came to her bed. The soldiers, ashamed their skills could not save them, shed bitter tears as they died, and the spirit claimed they were the most delicious things she had ever tasted. The next spirit regaled the others with a story of cunning and guile. One night, she threw a small boy into a bag. When his older sister came to rescue him, she too sank into the murk. Bog, not bag. I'm an idiot. These two were followed by their parents, then the other siblings, and extended relatives, until finally every member of the village was sleeping at the bottom of a bog. That's a big bog. When the spirit finished her story, she was so beside herself with glee that she did not notice the saliva that dripped down her chin. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Nervously, the smallest spirit in the group stepped forward to address the crowd. "I am the most amazing of all," cried the oft-ridiculed spirit at the top of her lungs. "For it was I who thrust all living creatures into the terror's deepest depths." The other spirits, unable to contain their mirth, collapsed to the ground and rolled about, and their laughter did not cease until the horrifying monster the spirit summoned from the demon would devoured each and every last one of them. I messed that entire thing up with my shitty reading. Oh my god, I actually feel ashamed at that. Ah, well. Nothing I could do. I can't go back and read it. Let's take a look at the, Yeah, it eventually just, crafts itself to look more like the, render. So this is the story of a small spirit getting revenge, or just killing all of their spirits probably because they ridiculed her. Oft ridiculed. Gotta say, kind of got what was coming to them. This is one of those stories that kind of ends on a high note. If you consider the death of spirits, asshole killing spirits. Fang of the Twins. This is another one in Nier Replicant, I'm pretty sure. I'll try to be better at reading from now on. A giant accursed axe that was bathed in the blood of young twins before being presented to the gods themselves. We've been together since we were born. We're together when we eat, when we sleep, and when we dream. We share everything. We share the milk we get from Mommy, and the nice thing Daddy says to us. But we're not together when we die. Daddy took me and cut off my head, and Mommy took my sister and cut off her head. But it's okay. Our blood got all mushed up into a big axe, so now we can be together forever. Yeah, that's fucked up. It almost reminds me of a story that was told in of course now I'm forgetting the name. Hold on, give me a second to look on my phone at what I am trying to remember. Right, Monument Mythos. If any of you have ever heard of the, it's like a horror. It's on YouTube. Just look up Monument Mythos, and in it, spoilers. In the second season, there's like a story of two people getting mushed up, like inside of something, and like being able to tell that fact, be able to recall that, still being alive, I guess. I did put a spoiler warning, and it kind of reminds me of that, like just a tiny bit. Except in this case, it's an axe, and not what it was in that. It's definitely a trope that's been told before, of dying and being put into a thing and still being conscious, I guess. Also, the level 4 version is the version that's in Nier Automata. So I guess in like loose canon terms, this is a Nier does upgrade all the weapons that appear in Automata, I guess. Maybe. Let's continue. The Vile Axe. What an ugly thing, huh? A mage with a putrid soul imbued the essence of a fire lizard into this axe. The girl stares at the sight before her. Her father lies nearby, carved to pieces by countless blades. Her mother also lies dying, as well as her newborn baby brother. All had suffered terribly in their final moments, and the girl can do nothing but cry as she stares at the 3 soldiers who have murdered her only family. Years later, the girl reappears, her visage made strong by her vow for revenge. The first soldier has grown so fat that the buttons on his uniform can barely contain his girth. The girl approaches him and claims to know an easy way to lose weight. On the pretext of an examination, she has him lie down on a bed before suddenly hacking off his arms and legs with an axe. The remaining lump of soldier screams and attempts to wriggle away, but the girl pins him down and tells him he still has parts he can lose. Sometime later, the girl sits in front of the now rounded torso and smiles. "There we are," she whispers. "Look how nice and slim you are." The second soldier is a peerless Lothario. Each night, a new woman is invited to his manor to spend the night. The girl breaks into his home and kills the women at his side, then uses her axe to hack off his manhood as he trembles and begs for mercy. Lothario, that's a good word that I need to use more often in my vernacular. Probably won't get to use it, but, whatever. The third soldier, Lothario is a Mario's other brother. The third soldier has long since left the service and is now living a quiet life with his family in a remote village. After they have fallen asleep, the girl takes her axe and cleaves the support beams of the house, causing it to collapse. She then sets fire to the wreckage, creating a great bonfire that can be seen for miles in all directions. Suddenly, the soldier's son crawls from the wreckage, covered from head to toe in terrible burns. As his eyes fall upon the girl who has murdered his family, she hands him her axe and flees into the dark of night, never to be seen again. So where I thought this was gonna go, and it kind of did, I guess, is that the boy would, survive and, vow to swear revenge against the girl, and, enacting, the same atrocity that she did to her, which was enacted upon her family. It's like a cyclical thing. But where this, threw me for a loop a little bit is that she handed the boy the axe herself, which is weird, and I'm not quite sure what that means. Bigger. Yeah. How long has this episode been going on for so far? About an hour. I'm allowed to mess up some of my lines. I've been reading for about an hour straight. Beast Lord, yeah, this is an iconic weapon in the Nier. In the Drakenverse. Nier, I guess. A beastly sword whose keen edge stands ready to mow down all who question the divine light of the wielder. Right, this is another Three Brothers story. Long ago, in a faraway kingdom, there were 3 brothers. The oldest brother was a king who ruled over the nation entire. He was a most terrifying king, terror feared by all. What a great family these people have. Each day, the king would select one of his subjects to execute as a sacrifice. This day, he chopped off a mother's head and forced her family to watch. The head spun 3 times as it flew through the air, before landing next to the head of her son, who the king had previously killed. Oh, the horror of it all. But the king merely watched the sight unfold before him, and laughed in a most unsettling voice. One day, the king contracted an illness most dire, one which caused his body to rot while he was still alive. But though diseased, the king would still drag his decaying flesh to the executions all the same. His retainers dared not defy their king, so they continued to kill day after day, after day, after day, after day. In the end, the king rotted and died. He was a disgusting, foul, rotten death. But his retainers continued carrying out executions before the king's rotting corpse every day. Every day, killing. Every day, the rotted king and the rotted retainers and the rotted citizens and the rotted you. What? Yeah, somebody's gonna have to help me just learn what this means, because So they just kept killing after the king died, and then they died and kept killing, and then the people that were killing died, and then I died? I don't know what's going on here. What is I just realized I could have been reading all of the stuff that was in Grimoire Nier. But that's not what this is about. Maybe I'll make a third video after I do Nier Automata's weapon stories and do Grimoire Nier's. Maybe not, though. I don't know. Maybe this is going to be my most popular video, and I'll do this for... I'll make 15 of these videos. Who knows? Yes! Iron Will. A classic. An enormous sword that grows heavier with every kill as blood and flesh cling to the blade. I raise the cry of my birth, the sound of heated iron taking shape, a steel mallet striking my form, born to deliver karmic justice. I enter the world under the careful watch of spark and flame that give light to the gloom. I am a blade born of a deafening roar. I am a weapon. I am Iron Will. I grant death. I transform the dead and screams of my foes to elation. I festoon my iron skin with their viscera. When I rob them of life, I am filled with dark joy. When I crush them beneath me, I find meaning in my birth. And I continue to kill, that I might share this delight with all. I kill and kill and kill and kill. I am a weapon. I am Iron Will. I am shattered. At battle and blood's end, my body is torn asunder by malice and hate. Today, I again engage the Red Dragon in battle, and magical forces meet leaping iron fangs to create a bloodstorm. My steel cursed, I sink into the slumbering black. I am a weapon. I am Iron Will. I dream. It is the dream of a small butterfly. In it, the butterfly is caught in a light rain, struggling against it with all of its might. In the darkest of nights, I behold a dream that will never come true. I am a weapon. I am Iron Will. Yeah, this is one of the weapons that I am also wielding currently in my Nier Automata playthrough. It's mostly just because it looks cool. Iron Will resembles a striking resemblance to the Dragon Slayer from Berserk. Also, that's kind of a reason why. Receiving the sword on a subsequent runs through prompts the following exchange between Nier and Grimoire Vice. Do we not already have this weapon? Shh, these things happen the second time around. That's pretty good. That they're aware of this fact. The second weapon in the Phoenix series, a large sword used by temple guardsmen and supposedly made from feathers of a legendary firebird. It's pretty ornate weapon for simple guardsmen, no? My coffee's getting cold. Alright. This is a story of a long time ago. I missed a couple words, but you get the gist. There was once a beautiful bird with resplendent feathers that lived a quiet life deep in the forest. One day, a lost child wandered into the woods. He came from a place of famine and had been abandoned in the forest as a way to reduce the number of mouths to feed. The music looped and got louder again. Taking pity on the feeble, starving child, The beautiful bird plucked one of its own feathers and gave it to him. When he returned home, his family was overjoyed by the feather and permitted him to live with them once more. Hearing the child's story, one person after another descended on the forest to tell the bird how poor and unfortunate they were. Each time, the bird would pluck a feather and give it away, pluck a feather and give it away, until it had no more to give, and its once beautiful visage had become shabby beyond recognition. But the shabby bird held no regrets. One day, the original child appeared before the shabby bird, which was featherless and freezing in the cold. He had come seeking a bird with resplendent feathers, that he might repay the creature's earlier kindness. Overjoyed, the shabby bird said to the child, "It is I you seek. If I might beg a favor, would you hold me to your chest and warm my freezing body?" Sparing a single glance at the shabby bird, the child called it a liar and cut it down with a large blade. He then roasted the bird, ate every last part, and set out anew to find the beautiful bird who had once saved his life. What's the moral of that story? Hold on, let me... don't... don't let other people know where you got your riches from? Don't... Obviously... some of the faults on a lot of the faults on the child for cutting down this bird who was talking to him, I guess. I'm not looking for a dumb talking bird. I'm looking for a beautiful talking bird. But also, some of it's on the bird for, like, believing all of these people and giving away all of its feathers. But also, I would say it's mostly on the townspeople for taking all of this bird's feathers. There's a lot of blame to go around here. And obviously the bird is the biggest victim here. On to the next one. Labyrinth's Song. A sword for the second in the Labyrinth set of weapons. A sword forged from metal and liquefied beast horns. Its dull glow lures people deep into the labyrinth. I need to take a drink of water, because my throat is going funky. I don't know how people who read audiobooks do this. This is taking all of my willpower. Listen, that sword isn't the only one with iron will, if you know what I mean. It was a beast that lived in a cavern's deepest, most untouched depths. It had massive horns, a body like steel, breath of scorching fire. The peace-loving villagers hated this monstrous beast, with the head of a bull and the body of a human. They feared it, and soon the beast came to be known as the Minotaur of the Labyrinth. Our original. Contrary to its terrifying appearance, the Minotaur was exceptionally kind. Not only did it refrain from harboring other creatures, it took great care not to trample flowers beneath its oafish feet as it walked. Indeed, the reason it lived so deep inside a cavern was to help avoid frightening the villagers. One day, a lost girl wandered into the beast's cavern. Frightened by the sight of it, she cried so hard she eventually passed out, which left the beast in quite the quandary. I have no choice, the beast finally decided. I must take the poor thing back to the village, for her mother and father will be terribly worried. 2 days after the girl vanished, her panicked parents found her sleeping soundly in front of their home. On the ground a short distance away was the body of the Minotaur. It had been impaled by several swords, and the blood scattered around it held an almost otherworldly quality. Yet there was no indication the beast had attacked the girl. In fact, it looked as though it had been trying to place as much distance between itself and her as possible, so as to not dirty her with its blood, almost as if it didn't want her to be afraid. And then, having curled up to make itself as small as possible, the monster died. Yeah, that's fucked up. Man, these make me feel bad. Onto the Fool's Lament, another ugly as shit weapon. but it's another weapon. It's another diary weapon that looks like a dragon. A weapon with a heroic dragon motif, used by a man who tried to save the world. Ooh. Memoir, June 6th, 2003. Approximately 1500. A massive, white humanoid, initially called the Weapon, but since renamed the Giant, falls from the sky above Tokyo's Shinjuku ward, inflicting tremendous damage. At the same time, a large red creature, henceforth referred to as the Dragon, appears and engages the Giant in combat, though both the nature of its attacks and their utility remain unclear. As the self-defense force contemplates methods by which they might attack the target, the government establishes a Bureau of Emergency Countermeasures. Ah, this is a, I'm assuming this is going to have a lot to do with Drakengard, which I know so little about, but I'm still glad to hear lore. Memoir, June 12th, 2003, approximately 1600. The Giant, which was locked in combat with the Dragon, suddenly begins to collapse for reasons unknown. The Dragon is then shot down by the 6th Division, 303rd Squadron of the Air Self-Defense Force. No official record exists of who issued the order to attack the Dragon. Work has begun to retrieve the remains of both the Giant and the Dragon, but no official verification has ever been made regarding which organization performed the retrieval. Memoir, December 2003. The first case of white chlorination syndrome is confirmed in Tokyo's Shinjuku ward, and thus, humanity's death knell has been signed. July 2004. Humans continue to turn violent due to the white chlorination syndrome, with fighting growing increasingly intense in infected regions. With the cause of the disease still unclear, the infected are isolated, and violent riots suppressed by force. Main thoroughfares are sealed, and rail transportation is halted, later leading to all of Shinjuku being sealed off. At this time, the prospect of asking the American military for non-official intervention is considered, but the government defers. Meanwhile, research begins on Masao particles obtained from the Giant and the Dragon, as well as countermeasures for white chlorination syndrome. This research ultimately leads to the founding of Project Gestalt a decade later. I did not think we were going to be getting, like, such deep lore, but such important lore from one of these weapons. The weapon's description, story, and appearance are a reference to Drakengard, and the main protagonist came. Upon closer inspection, the true-headed dragon takes the shape of a level 3 Angelus. The sword emits a faint glow when in the dark. The markings are best seen at the shipwreck at seafront. Huh, would you look at that? It does. I like how the trivia section had nothing to do with, like, the lore that it gave. It is a very powerful weapon. Onto this. Virtuous Treaty. The other weapon that is wielded by 2B. A white katana said to have been forged by a swordsmith in a distant eastern land, presented as an offering to the nobility. It was apparently never used in combat. About that, it is now. My family has decided I am to be betrothed. I cannot resist, for I am but a tool. The man who became my husband possessed terribly cold eyes, but he too is a mere tool to be used by so his family might prosper. He treats me well in his own way, but I was still unable to properly respond to his kindness. One night he calls me to his chambers. Still thinking him a kind man, I go to him willingly. As he greets me, I stare at the beautiful white katana he holds in his hand. The dude killed the lady? It's a very common theme in these weapon stories. Also, it has relatively nothing or little to do with Nier Automata. I don't actually remember the weapon story of the Virtuous Treaty from that game. Well, maybe by the time I finish Nier Automata and read this thing's weapon story in that video, maybe I'll remember this. Let's continue. We're on to the final stretch, ladies and gentleladies. It's time for all of the spears. This is for transient, though. The weapon you get at the beginning of the time skip. A knight was so moved by the suffering of a beggar that he removed all ornamentation from this spear. They were a frighteningly diligent people. They would clear forests and hunt animals, even when they had no need. They developed techniques to preserve food they were unable to eat, and earned more money than could ever be spent. Yet there was not a single one among them who did not accept these practices, for none knew of any other customs. They were a frighteningly studious people. Their grasp of calculation and science exceeded any pretense of practicality, and they would repeatedly engage in spirited debates regarding predictions of the future. They invented an increasingly difficult language, and created an infinite series of complex machines which they would immediately discard. But there was not a single one among them who looked back, for none of them knew any reason for concern. They were a frighteningly obedient people. Without ever being told, they would greet the morning sun at the same time, in the same clothes, while toiling away in the same cramped rooms. Yet there was not a single one among them who complained, for none of them knew what else they should be doing. Having worked far too much, the people lost their forests and took to living atop the sand. Having grown far too intelligent, the people conversed in a language that no other people could comprehend. Having grown far too well-behaved, the people were unable to defy the laws that would be established one after the other, and came to live their lives enclosed by tens of thousands of rules. Well, this is obviously about Facade, the people of Facade, which this trivia section really helps. The spear is exactly the same as the spears wielded by the warriors of Facade, so it is likely that the spear was given to Nier as a gift. The weapon story for transients is about the history of Facade. Yeah, I could have guessed. Fascinating. The Spear of the Usurper. It's a very practical weapon, but we haven't seen its level 4, so we'll see by then. A spear used by a prince's body double to slay his employer. The traitor was later killed with the same spear. In a far-off land, there was a man who acted as a double for the nation's prince, performing duties in his stead as was required. One day, having finished his work, he returned to the prince's chamber to find the princess lying naked in his bed. As the double stood in place dumbfounded, the man who shared his face sneered and invited him to join them. The double loved the prince's sister, and he felt that the princess, who admired him as her brother, loved him as well. Indeed, she was the only thing that kept him going in an otherwise miserable job, for the prince was the most despicable man indeed. Eventually, it came to pass that a war was to be waged under the prince's command. The night before it was to begin, the prince took his double aside and promised him a night with his sister if he could bring him the head of the enemy general. And as the prince chuckled with delight, the double took up his spear and thrust it through the prince's gaping mouth. The war over, the prince made a queen of his sister and would inflict wounds upon his own face and throat, an act which would occur every time she called out to him using her brother's name. Before long, the prince was found dead, his face burned, and a spear thrust through his open mouth. The man's face, hideously burned, was the very picture of serenity. Damn. There's a lot going on in this one. Well, the spear doesn't get too ostentatious. Let's continue. On to the Devil Queen. The favorite spear of a mad queen whose lust for power led her to kill all of her son's wives. This story takes place in a small country at around the same latitude as the northernmost member of a nation of city-states. They are part of a region with a village that is attempting to establish a trade agreement with another village on a tiny island in the ocean south of a country that used to have an alliance with a republic next to a kingdom where a queen resided. What? That was a lot of locations. It was asked by the owner of a shop frequented by a wet nurse who looked after the child born of an adulterous relationship by the wife of the master of a foolish servant who fell in love with a beautiful queen, who appears in the poems of a minstrel whom was loved by the country's king's wife's little brothers, cousins, brothers, big brother's son-in-law's foster child. So it's certainly on purpose, this chain of stupidity. Where does one store the throne that was supposed to be adorned with the decorations crafted from the materials of a handle of the lid of a pot that is the same weight as tableware, that is the same color as a weather vane on a neighboring house, that can be seen from the peephole of a door and the reflection of a mirror, and on an ornamental frame decorated with silver carvings engraved with the fragment that was made when creating the whetstone used to polish this kitchen knife? Alright, you're fucking with me now. This story is insane. Oh, God. The person who heard that question was the wife's, husband's, little sister's, big brother's, daughter's, groom's, little brother's, nephew's, father's, mother's, husband's, bride's, niece's, father's-in-law's, wife's, husband's, little sister's, big brother's, daughter's, groom's, little brother's, nephew's, father's, mother's, husband's, bride's, niece's, father's-in-law's, wife's, husband's, little sister's, big brother's, daughter's, groom's, little brother's, nephew's, father's, mother's, husband's, bride's, niece's, father's-in-law's, wife's, father's, little sister's, big brother's, daughter's, groom's, little brother's, nephew's, father's, mother's, husband's, bride's, niece, father's-in-law's, wife, husband's, little sister's, big brother's, daughter's, groom's, little brother's, nephew's, father's. This story was fucking nonsense. And if any of you can discern what this fucking means, like, this story, I felt like, has no point to it. It was just like an attempt at insanity, which, to be fair, this was honestly very fun to read. Like, partway through, I felt like I got a bit of a flow going and just started speaking. Like, is that how rappers feel? Anyway, this was stupid but fun, which I feel like I needed a break with. This is a nice tone. This is a nice refresher in between all of the other insanities. It's a different type of insanity from the rest. Each part of the Devil Queen's weapon story is one continuous run-on sentence. I could tell! No wonder this thing was put in a box and left in the Lost Shrine. This is sunrise. This spear's point is so finely owned that all who are grazed by it experience an instant, painless death. Sounds powerful. In the distant past of a land known as the Golden Isle, there existed a sword crafted from every kind of metal and precious gem in the land. So sharp was its edge that even the slightest cut would leave an unsealable wound that eventually drained the victim of both their blood and life. In a strange turn of fate, the sword eventually ended up in the hands of a destitute woman who sold her body to get by. The sword was as long as she was tall, and she would not wield it should she could not wield it effectively, so she instead slid it between her sheets as a surprise for the men who used her. The sword was so sharp they felt no pain when cut, and soon died without even knowing it was happening. The woman would then help herself to their coin, causing her own purse to swell. Making use of her gains, the woman dressed most beautifully, and soon had acquired every kind of metal and precious gem in the land. But it was not enough for her, so she decided to melt down the sword, and obtain the gems hidden within, a desire made manifest by the sword's beauty. Thus decided, the woman heaved the sword to her shoulders, and made for the blacksmith. But on the way to the smith, the sheer weight of the sword caused the woman to lose her balance, and she fell from a bridge into the river below. So unshakable was the woman's greed that she could not bring herself to relinquish her grip upon it. The woman's pale and bloodless corpse was found washed up on the riverside the following day. Sucks to suck, lady. How did these gentlemen, quotation marks, who, like, lay upon this sword not... Like, I know, like, the cut is so painless that they don't feel it, but the sword itself is, like, a solid thing. Whatever. Beast Curse. The third and final in the line of beast weapons for Nier. A Gestalt. / whatever. A noble lord commissioned this beastly weapon that the world might stand in awe of his power. This is the would be the final of the beast of the three brothers as well. Long, long ago, in a faraway kingdom, there lived three brothers. The youngest was a terrifically lazy lad who spent most of his days fast asleep. However, he was every bit as cheerful as he was lethargic, and so was beloved by all. You know what? Maybe this group of brothers has one good apple, huh? I can't wait to get to level 4 where we learn that everything good happened and nothing bad ever happened. When the nation was beset upon by a most contagious disease, the youngest son did naught but laze about in the palace, humming to himself all the while. But his cheerful music comforted the townspeople, so instead of hating him, they sang his praises. "Oh, what a fine young man," they would say. "Oh, just the finest young man you will ever find." When the nation became embroiled in war, the youngest son did not but laze about in the palace, telling stories of the good old days all the while. But his fascinating stories helped the townspeople forget the horrors of war, so instead of hating him, they sang his praises. "Oh, what an amazing young man," they would say. "Just the most amazing young man you will ever find." One day, the youngest son was lazing about the palace as usual, when he realized he could no longer hear the voices of the townspeople, and he wondered why that might be. He lazed as he wondered. He lazed and he wondered. He lazed and he wondered. Eventually, all that wondering tired him out, and he went to sleep. That is why, in that nation where all have perished from war and disease, the only sound that can be heard is the soft snoring of a young man. It is a notion of happiness, a notion-ation of happiness, a nation of happiness, a nation of happiness, a nation of happiness. It's a story of inaction being a choice. Doing nothing is also a decision or whatever. Maybe not exactly, but he's certainly better than his brothers, at least. He didn't kill his entire nation out of malice, just out of laziness, I guess, is the thing. The moral of this one, don't be lazy. Which is fair enough. The Captain's Holy Spear. Oh, what an ugly weapon. Again. A spear brandished by a warrior monk chief who sacrificed his own life to protect his comrades. The captain tramples life under his feet. The screams of others transform into songs of joy. Flowing tears change from despair to darkness. Conflict beckons revenge and gives way to new solitude. A short one, but let's see if I can... Captain tramples life, Captain kills people. Because people are dying, because the Captain's enemies are dying, his allies and people he's protecting scream joy. Flowing tears change from despair into darkness. The families of whoever he kills are no longer become sad but angry, and then they get revenge. And it's a simple story of revenge. Again, it's a cyclical cycle. lacking any other words. Yeah, it becomes much better looking as it upgrades, though. The Dragoon Lance. A spear that symbolizes a pact between a great warlord and an ancient dragon. He had grown old. The king's dauntless gaze had lost its light, and his stalwart body had grown soft. What's more, every ounce of fear and vanity he had gained with age now gnawed away at his heart. The king was afraid, so he repeatedly ordered the invasion of neighboring countries, so as to hold onto the lands he had been forsworn to protect. The king was afraid, so he tried to take everything through violence and oppression, for he no longer trusted his own advisors and vassals. There was a dragon that had sworn fealty to the king. The wingless creature would do anything anything the king commanded, for he had been saved by the king once, and sworn to repay this debt with his very soul. Even if the king's orders were folly and madness, the dragon would follow them to the last, for his king was justice itself. One day, the dragon requested an audience with the king. He was covered in blood from his latest victim, the king's own son, who the regent had ordered the dragon to assassinate. The bloody dragon hung his head low and said, "I cannot defy your orders, O king, but neither can I obey them any longer. I beg of you, kill me and grant me release." This is the tale of a foolish king and a wingless dragon in a nation that fell centuries ago. Even now, the wind blows ceaselessly across the grasslands. It blows just as it did on the day king and dragon made their pact. It gets bigger, and it gets more ornate, and it becomes golden. I don't really have much to say about that story. Oh man, if you know anything about Nier Replicant or Gestalt, you know that this is the weapon to use if you want to get through the game quickly. It's very powerful. And it will also be the final in the Phoenix weapons. Forged by monks from feathers of the legendary Firebird, this spear was designed as a tool of self-defense. There once was a warrior in a frontier nation who feared not death. He was so brawny and powerful, arrows were said to bounce harmlessly off his flesh. For this reason, the warrior always threw himself into the thick of any battle. One day, a beautiful bird appeared before the warrior in a dream. The bird commended the warrior for his valor in battle, and offered to grant him any one of two wishes. The bird could bring an end to war and grant peace to all the world, or the bird could bequeath the warrior an immortal body. The warrior chose immortality. From that day forth, the warrior's exploits were nothing short of astonishing. He mowed down foes in uncountable numbers. No amount of arrows or swords or axes could slow his march. The king showered him with titles and gifts, and for a time, it seemed the warrior's days of stunning glory would continue until the end of time. But conflict did not cease. Eventually, the warrior's frontier nation was invaded so often that the flames of war left the entire country in ruins. Crops withered, people perished, and before long, there were none left who even knew the warrior's name. The shattered warrior was tortured day and night by endless starvation, but his body refused to let him die. So he sought out to the bird again and pleaded for it to grant him release. "Ah, but you cannot die," chirped the bird in response. "You will never die." This is why I've been saying, and always will say, that immortality is the worst. I believe that, true immortality is one of the worst afflictions you could inflict someone with. It's horrifying. What a good weapon, though, eh? This carried me through a lot of the game. Carried a lot of people through a lot of the game. The final in the Labyrinth Shout, in the Labyrinth series of weapons. Forged from metal and liquefied beast claws, this destructive spear is filled with deep hatred for the world. She was a hopelessly slow woman, impossibly clumsy. It would take her 3 times longer than anyone else to accomplish a task. She walked slowly, talked slowly. She even blinked slowly. So slow was the woman that she could not even draw water to anyone's satisfaction. The children began calling her the cow and laughing when she passed by, but she would only chuckle in response. She was a hopelessly dull woman. When she fell and drew blood, she would carry on as though in a daze. Though coins often dropped from her purse, she never managed to retrieve one, and if someone spoke ill of her to her face, it would take her hours to realize the insult. When the children saw her, they would hurl rocks with glee. She was a hopelessly foolish woman. One summer, when the village was suffering a most terrible drought, the woman vanished. The children all starved to death. The villagers spent no time worrying about the woman who ran away. 2 days later, rain fell and the village was saved. But the woman did not return. And on the 20th day, a shaman arrived at the village. The shaman held a spear with a pair of horns that was oiled and sticky to the touch. So heavy was the spear that none could wield it effectively, although, even if they managed to lift it, the weapon was incapable of piercing through anything at all. The shaman forced it upon the people and left it with them, but none dare approach it, and to this day it quietly slumbers in a forgotten corner of the village. Somebody's gonna have to help me understand this one. Did the woman become this spear? It says that this is it shares reflects key aspects of the battle between Theseus and the Minotaur. Would knowing more about that story help understanding this? Maybe. If you know, help a brother out, please. I would be greatly appreciated. Let's continue on. Fool's Accord. This is the last in the Fool list. It's one of the dragon ones. A lance birthed as a part of a pact with an ancient red dragon. This is the story of a sorrowful prince, a tale of a kingdom in a time long past. Attacked by the forces of darkness, the nation was annihilated in a single night by inhuman soldiers with red eyes and a group of black dragons so numerous they blotted out the sky. Having infiltrated the king's castle, the black dragon visited upon the king and queen a most horrible fate. It is said that their stomachs were torn open by the black dragon's mighty claws, and the very floor they stood upon became a sea of blood. The prince and princess, though racked with sorrow, escaped to live another day. The prince, spurred by the shock of witnessing his parents' tragic end, became consumed by a desire to exact revenge. This is the story of a terrifying prince, a history of conflict in the long ago. Obsessed with laying low his hated enemies, the prince indulges in his vengeance day after day after day. Even when faced with foes who take heel, he chases them down and tears them apart from groin to gullet. The carnage is so horrific his fellow soldiers whisper tales of how they saw him mutilating bodies that are already long dead. Perhaps because no commander can control him, the prince is sent to even harsher battle. And this is the story of a fooled prince, the whereabouts of fate in the long ago. The prince's next battleground is a castle that guards a goddess. He lays waste to all before him, hacking arms, cleaving legs, rending stomachs, gouging eyes, separating heads from shoulders. But soon the injured prince can no longer tell the difference between the blood that rains down and that which comes from his own wounds, and he collapses in a heap. As he writhes in pain, coughing up gouts of hot blood, he lifts his gaze and sees a hated dragon standing before him. And this is the story of a mad prince, a meeting with a dragon in the long ago. An injured red dragon stands before the prince, and though it is a different color than the beasts that killed his parents, he feels the need to avenge himself upon it regardless. But as he raises his sword, the dragon says, "In exchange for both our souls, human, I will save your life and grant your power." After some thought, the prince makes the pact. It matters not to him what he might lose in order to deal in the deal that involves a dragon. All he cares about is that he can continue swinging his blade. So he swings and swings and swings, and with each blow, his heart fills with a desire as black as the deepest night. The weapon's description and appearance is a direct reference to the pact between Kame and the ancient red dragon from Drakengard. Upon close inspection, it appears to take the shape of a second level Angelus. The weapon story is about Kame's backstory, and how he met Angelus at the beginning of Drakengard. I kind of guessed, but I also know nothing about this. And finally, onto the last weapon from this weapon story. In this video that has gone on for maybe a little too long, we end it with Virtuous Dignity. A white spear crafted by an ailing blacksmith. Some claim the face upon it represents its creator's ecstasy, but others say it shows the pain his wife felt as she was stabbed to death. There once existed a cursed spear whose holder would inevitably meet a violent end. Eventually, the weapon found its way to a mechanical automaton that possessed no soul. And though it was a mere machine, the spear delivered countless deaths upon it all the same. The automaton warred against mechanical weapons, much like itself. It was crushed to death, burned to death, thrown to its death from great heights. Yet each time the automaton was reborn and thrown into battle anew. The war became fiercer and more complicated. There were self-detonation suicide attacks, false operations, and betrayals by companions. Indeed, it seemed to the soulless automaton that it was inhabiting a kind of infinite, cyclical hell. Finally, the automaton died in a final time in order to save its trusted companions. An act that precluded the possibility of ever returning to life again. But as pangs of agony spread through its body, the automaton found its final rest. This is obviously, maybe not obviously, but maybe it is obviously talking about what spoilers for Nier Automata, what happens with 2B. Now, it's been a while since I remember the ending or what happens during Nier Automata, but this seems pretty much what the story of 2B, and it's intense, I guess. Well, I don't think there's anything much else there's nothing more to read. This is the final weapon story. So, if you have watched this long, I thank you. Thank you for coming on this little journey with me. And I will be seeing you next time, whatever my next video may be. See ya.